What's going on, everybody? We are back at you again tonight with a very special guest. Without further ado, we welcome in a man that shows all superheroes don't wear capes, as he's helped save your favorite sport from a lockout. The executive director of the National Football League's Player Association, this man helped play a major role in helping players and owners come to terms on a new collective bargaining agreement during the 2011 lockout. If you were looking to look at his resume, it's blinding, honestly. I mean, a trial lawyer, litigation partner, working for the U.S. Attorney's Office, Department of Justice. I'm not going to read anymore because I already feel like I'm inadequate enough. This gentleman shares the same honors as Woodrow Wilson, Robert F. Kennedy, and Ted Kennedy, having graduated from the pristine University of Virginia School of Law. We welcome in the #1 UMD LAC supporter, the man whose F in his name stands for fantastic, Mr. DeMaurice Smith. How's it going, my friend?
First of all, it's great to join you guys. Hey, man, two things. One, I just want to be the guy in the graphic. I mean, that guy looks a little angry. Looks a little steroided up a little bit, not going to lie. Oh, yeah, I love that. That's another 150 that I'm not packing right now. And then, the F for fantastic, that could have gone a couple different ways. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, we're really pumped to have you on the show. You are a very important figure in the football world, and we are so pumped to have you on the show tonight, especially with there's been a lot of news that's been coming out recently. And I know it's been a lot over the last few weeks, and we're just kind of interested to talk about that some, but also get to know the human that is DeMaurice Smith. I think everybody just sees you on TV talking football, but they don't know that other side of you that I want to talk about. So
I'm pretty sure my family doesn't want anyone to know the human side of me. So that's they spend most of the time going, why do people pay you for a job? That's kind of where I'm in my household. But look, I'm thrilled to be here, and let's get after it.
All right. Well, I want to start off with something that actually just came out today. It started because Dan Graziano came out to the NFL, and the NFLPA agreed to a salary cap ceiling of $208.2 million for the 2022 season. Yep. And if it gets there, it would be a 14% increase over the 2021 cap of $182.5 million. Obviously, the COVID pandemic basically kind of changed the salary cap for this past season. And obviously going into this year, it's going to be a lot lower. Can you kind of explain to our audience the process about how this played out and how you're able to come to this increase?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we wouldn't be here if the players hadn't ratified the 2020 collective bargaining agreement. So, the best way to understand our salary cap and how we're dealing with it is to take a look at other sports. The National Football League was down about $4.2 billion last year. Nonetheless, every one of our players got paid their full salary. No other player in any major sports last year got paid their full salary. And the reason we were able to do that is by taking this long-term collective bargaining agreement and spreading out the losses that would attribute to us. So, to make the math overly simple, if the league was down $4 billion last year, that means player salaries should have been down $2 billion last year. So what we were able to do is to spread out our $2 billion hit over a number of years, and then we just set the cap based on the increases of revenue going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting. Obviously, the players having had to take this cut this past year, it's much deserved. I think also teams have been struggling to try to fit under the cap, as you've seen a lot of people becoming cap casualties right now. So I love to see that increase. I love to see the players getting paid. Brad, where were you going? Because I know you had a direction you wanted to take this discussion.
Yeah, DeMaurice, I'm curious, what does Utopia look like to you if you were to achieve your mission statement in totality, and what have been the hurdles to get there?
Great question. I mean, I think this show is only 30 minutes long, so my Utopia, we'd be spilling over at least for the next couple of days. Well, first of all, I'd be taller, so that would be the first one. Look, we're a labor union, right? And I'm not sure our Utopia for the NFL players would be much different than anybody else who runs a union. You want folks to get paid a fair wage for fair work. You want to make sure that they get the health care that they deserve. You want to be able to take care of people who are no longer working through pensions. So, I mean, we have a long laundry list of things. But the reality is, if we lived in Utopia, you wouldn't need a labor union, right? If you lived in Utopia, you wouldn't need someone to fight for fair wages and fair working conditions, because Utopia would just be that. So we still live in a country where the average wages for Americans has declined over the last 40 years. That has been consistent with the decline in labor unions. My guess is you guys are all a heck of a lot younger than me. You'd probably have to ask your parents and your grandparents about what a pension is, right? There was a time when everybody in America got a pension, but those things don't exist anymore. And I'm happy to say, at least in the National Football League, there's only two groups of people who are represented by a labor union. The players, of course, and the referees. It's no mistake that those are the only two groups of people who have minimum wages, healthcare, and a pension. And that's for a business that, normally we would be making what, $16-17 billion a year, right? Anyway,
Right.
Long answer, I know, but I know podcasts hate guys with long ansers, but
Yeah,
you invited me.
That's true.
So.
You're the
No, you
exception.
can
We'll
keep
let that
talking.
go. Yeah.
You said your goals were similar to any other large national labor organization. Do you ever contact any other organizations for insight, or is it?
Yeah, all the time. Well, I one of the first things when I joined in 2009 was to really reestablish our core labor union ties. So today I sit on the executive council of the AFL-CIO. Sat there since 2010. I sit on the board of the insurance company of labor, Ulico. To me, it's really important to remind our guys that we're not, when it comes to working, we do the work. And I know that the National Football League is probably one of the most enabling businesses in America. You can literally be a player in the National Football League, and if you want, insulate yourself from what's going on in America. We're workers. I mean, our guys are the guys who actually put their hands in the ground. So I make it a point to be very close to the AFL-CIO, to Ulico, to the culinary workers. The people who took me under their wing and really taught me this job was Marvin Miller, who obviously came from organized labor before he was the head of the Major League Baseball union. So it's important for our guys to understand that without these labor unions, let me just put a blunt point on it. Anytime there's a work stoppage, the only friends we ever have are other labor unions. We don't get a whole hell of a lot of love from ESPN or the networks because they just want our guys to come back to work. The only people who generally support us in a bare knuckle fight are other labor unions.
DeMaurice, you mentioned that the players are the labor. They are what gets everything done. They are the product. They are why anyone watches the NFL, right? So
Yep.
I'm curious, have you had discussions with players of alternative business models to the way the NFL is currently structured? When we talked about what a utopia might look like to you, you say we wouldn't need a union, and I imagine that answer is because the labor actually owns the product. Do they ever have conversations with you about that?
Yeah, sure. We have tons of conversations about what it would take to achieve everything we want. But let me flip the hypo around. If you were representing steel workers, you would say, wouldn't it be great if the steel workers own the steel mines, right?
Right.
They don't.
They don't.
If you were representing teachers, you would say, wouldn't it be great if the teachers owned the schools? Or if you were representing waiters and waitresses, Wouldn't it be great if they owned the restaurants? Or Broadway singers? Wouldn't it be great if we just owned the business?
Mhm.
Nobody does, right?
Right,
and,
right.
and that's because the economic models in this country don't favor that. Even look at fledgling leagues that start, right? Everybody's interested in capital. And at the end of the day, it becomes very, very difficult, especially for a group of people who have an average career of 3 years, to be in a position to own the industry. If we wanted to own the industry, I would tell our players, be prepared to strike for 3 years.
Do you think that's what it would take? A 3-year strike would you could gather the capital from banks to start a new league that players
I
own?
think if we struck for 2 years, we would get everything we want. But here's the problem. Very few players want to strike for 2 years. Let's be blunt, right? Because the way they would look at it, they would say, D, if the average player only plays for 3 years, you're asking me to give up 2 years of my earning capacity.
Right.
And the reality is I might be out of football in year 2. Somebody else would come and get my job and they would benefit from my sacrifice. But you know what? Yes.
I have so many questions off of this, but I'm gonna let Dave go.
Yeah.
Well, I had a quick one because you're talking about the earnings and the economics. The league minimum is $660,000. Now there are players who make that on one end, and there are others on the other end of the spectrum that make multiple millions each year. Now some players can afford to take the year off, while others literally need it to provide for their family. So how do you factor that in when you're, deciding CBAs for the NFLPA?
Yeah, I mean, I make it easy. I don't decide anything the players do, right?
Right.
I don't get I mean, I know it's surprising. I don't get a vote on the CBA. I don't.
Wow.
That makes sense.
We negotiate the best deal and then we turn it over to the players to vote. But let's unpack that for a second. I would guess the average age of the guys I'm looking at is 28.
Yeah,
right?
you're good.
Right.
You're good.
What's the average wage of a man your age in America? $60,000
Probably
maybe?
60.
I would say, yeah,
probably
probably
60. Yeah.
Nobody in our league makes less than $610,000. So when you say that there's a disparity between people on the low end making 610 and people on the high end, I don't allow us to sort of engage in this sophistry that people who are earning minimum wage in the National Football League are struggling. It's $610,000 a year.
Sure, but they have a lot of people clawing at them, and
No.
Shut him down. Yeah, go DeMaurice. Shut him down.
No. I mean, when I'll talk to you like I talk to our men. Your job is to be a man and a businessman in the business of football. If you have people hanging on you and you have people, sucking money from you, then you're not handling your business as a man. If your son came into this league and said, hey, Dad, or let's just change around. Your son came in, graduated from college, walked in, said, hey, Pop, love you to death. I got a job that's going to make me $600,000 a year. Hey, but
Right.
Pop, here's the problem. I can barely scrape by. What would you say? The first thing you would say is after you knocked him to the ground and he woke up, you would say, son, I need you to handle your business, right?
But as labor union president, if somebody says my 660 isn't enough, aren't you supposed to get them more?
If they say that my 660 is not enough, I would say that's your minimum salary in the National Football League. That's your minimum. So if you want to make more, what's the difference between a minimum wage earner and someone who makes more on the team? Every now and then we would just call that other guy what? Better. Right? But the play here is not that the 600 and people talking about that as the ceiling. $610,000 a year is the floor. Give me
Sure.
another industry in the country where you're 22 years old, and the minute you sign a contract, you will not make any less than $610,000. If you and I were talking to a group of college students and every one of them was going to be guaranteed $610,000 for at least 3 years, you and I would be talking to them about how to live off of what? $100,000. How to put the majority of that money away. How to make what you earn not only money that you're making, but how to turn that into transformational wealth.
Sorry, Dave, I gotta commandeer this. This is good stuff. So, can you
I don't want him
explain?
to hate us. I want him to
No,
actually
no. He's answering.
No, I mean, look, I love talking to you guys because you guys said that I could come on the show and talk to you guys like I talk to our players.
Yeah,
This is how I
absolutely.
talk to our guys.
No, this is great. This is what we want to hear. So, can you explain the organizational structure of the union? Like, how is everything funded?
Yep.
Is there a strike fund? How does the
Yep.
sausage get made there?
Yep. Well, we're funded. We're funded in a very unique way. Unlike almost every other union in the country, and certainly unlike every other sports union, our union doesn't run on dues. My salary doesn't come out of dues salary. We have about 140 employees at the union. We're the largest sports union in the world. All of that is funded by a company called Players Inc. That's our wholly owned for-profit subsidiary of the union. We generate revenue every year based off of the group licensing from our players. So we take a portion of that money and we fully run the union. We take a portion of that money and we fully fund and run Players Inc. And then we write a royalty check back to every player in the National Football League. And going to your earlier example, whether you earn $610,000 as a minimum or you earn Tom Brady money, everybody gets exactly the same royalty payment because everybody is contributing exactly the same to that group licensing right. So we take our dues money, and all of the dues money is never spent. We put it in a strike fund or a lockout fund for if we have to go to war.
DeMaurice, Brad, I just wanted to ask really quick.
Go ahead.
So the report came out today about the NFL and the NFLPA coming to an agreement on the relaxed COVID protocols. To the extent that you're able to, can you tell us about what the players wanted out of the deal and if there was any correlation with the JuWuan James incident?
No, I mean, there was nothing with respect to the JuWuan James incident. I mean, just to do 30 seconds on that, because it seemed like almost every sports writer forgot that guys aren't covered if they work out by themselves. I mean, every player knows that. Any player not working out at the facility is subject to something called NFI, non-football injury. That's been that way in the National Football League since probably the first collective bargaining agreement. The relaxed COVID protocols were around the changes in the protocols given if a player has obtained the vaccine.
DeMaurice, I have a question, kind of switching gears. We've talked about the economics and people, wanting their money, but we see a situation with Aaron Rodgers now where he's foregoing money. And I think LeVeon Bell started the movement a couple of years ago of saying the best leverage we have is withholding our services.
Yep.
And it seems like a lot of players have done that now to kind of get what they want, making it more of a players' league. With this Aaron Rodgers situation, what are your thoughts on how players go about doing their business now?
Look, it's something I've been preaching to players for years. At the end of the day, there's in labor versus management, there's two macro frames, right? There's a lockout, and that happens when players want to withhold. When management locks players out and doesn't allow them to go to work. The other macro frame is a strike, and that's where players decide that they are not going to provide their services. And look, we were the subject of a 134-day lockout, and that was designed to try to choke the players out. Thankfully, we won a few lawsuits, and we bought a secret insurance policy that helped us through that. But, at the risk of going back to before when you guys were born, the major league players baseball players engaged in a strike in the mid-90s where those players canceled the World Series. Did they get what they want? Yes. Yes, they did. Because they made a decision to withhold their services to force management to give them what they want. When LeVeon Bell does it or Aaron Rodgers does it, I mean, we're all living in the sports world. We've seen basketball players do this for the last 30 years, right?
Right.
The only difference that I kind of find interesting is when basketball players demand a trade or when basketball players make a decision that they want a new coach, everybody's cool. When football players decide to withhold their services or tell management that they want to change, it turns into those players are being selfish. Why are football players subject to a different standard than basketball players? Right?
They shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. Shouldn't
That's a
be.
good point.
It's guys who are saying, this is my leverage point. And to take it like one step further, management and teams have no problem trading players without even telling them. Guys wake up in the morning sometimes and find out that they've been traded to another team. When a first ballot Hall of Fame player like Aaron Rodgers says or expresses his dissatisfaction with certain things with management, you would think that literally the sky is falling. I just don't understand why in one sport everybody's okay with that, and in another sport people are now being castigated that somehow they're not team players, right?
I don't know if it's somehow the way fans are connected to each league. In the NBA, I feel like people are more fans of players, and then in the NFL, everybody's more so with their team. Like people are LeBron fans more so than they would be a Lakers or a Cavs fan even.
I've got my own theories, I don't know what is the real reason, but everybody on this call knows that there's a difference between the way they're treated and the way that basketball players are treated, and I think it's duplicitous at best, right?
DeMaurice, I wanna talk a little bit about Players Inc. some more. The NFL doesn't have any like stake or ownership in that, correct? This is all wholly owned by the players.
100% owned by the players, and we would never let an owner have a stake in Players Inc.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, is there a number? Is there a number, an amount of money that you think it would take for the players to be comfortable for a 3-year lockout?
I don't understand the question.
So say if the next big distribution deal comes through and there's an extra however many billion for the players to split with the owners, whatever money that gets funneled towards Players Inc., is there an amount that you could save to make a 2-year lockout feasible?
Oh yeah. I see what you're saying. So now let me make sure we understand each other. No money from football operations goes into Players Inc.
So I don't understand how it gets funded.
So you guys ever heard of the Madden game?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's our
So
game.
that's who we got to get NFL 2K5 back.
Yeah, the Madden game is our game. So we take the group licensing rights of every NFL player. We go to EA Sports. They want to do a Madden game. EA Sports writes Players Inc. a big old check. If you grab a jersey and you take a look at the front of the jersey, obviously the front of the jersey has the NFL seal on the front.
Okay.
If you want to put a name on the back, you cut a check to
Players Inc.
There we go.
If Bose Headphones wants to do a deal to be the national headphones of the NFL player of the NFL, and they want to use NFL players. I mean, if you want to show the pair of headphones laying down on an empty field, knock yourself out. If you want to see a pair of headphones on NFL players, you stroke a check to Players Inc. Does that make sense?
It does.
So your question was how much would take for players to have not play for 3 years? I don't know the answer to that. I think, just keeping it real for a second. Players went on strike in the 1980s. Those they forced the players to come back to work, and from 1980 to 2020, if you looked at the growth in minimum salaries, my guess is if you told a bunch of 1980s players that they were going to make no less than $610,000, my guess is those players would say that would be enough. That would be enough for me to strike for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Going on strike and fighting for what you believe is right rarely has anything to do with money.
DeMaurice, I want to be respectful.
You go ahead.
I was going to say I wanted to be respectful of your time, so there were these last two things I wanted to ask you here. One, I know your son plays lacrosse for the University of Maryland in the Final Four. Can you talk about how proud you are right now and what your predictions are for the Final Four?
Well, you guys all have fathers, and we're all proud fathers, and the grind that it takes to play any sport, at almost any level is tough. You're playing D1 lacrosse and you're grinding your way out there. He's a D midi, so he's used to just all hustle, all grit, no glory. And we call him Champ in the house. Champ and his buds just fought their way through Notre Dame, so we're about to stick it to Duke this weekend, and then on to the championship on Monday. And win, lose, or draw, you're just always going to be proud of your kids when they set a goal. And I can't be more proud of that cat. And then he gets to play Duke. So in our household, man, we just get after it when we go after Duke, man. It's just kind of a thing. So it'll be a good one on Saturday. They're a good team, and then Virginia, Carolina, and we'll see what happens.
We are talking with DeMaurice Smith, Executive Director of the NFLPA. DeMaurice, we'd like to get our guests out of here with a little triple play rapid fire, a fun little this or that style question game. Are you game?
Sure. I'm literally I think the skies are about to break. So if it's fast, let's go.
All right. Watch lacrosse or watch football?
Lacrosse, not even close.
All right. You're trapped in a rom-com with your enemy, or you're trapped in a horror movie with a friend?
I'm going to go always. I'll choose being with a friend.
Oh, in the horror movie. All right. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Eat broccoli with every meal or watch an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians every day?
Oh, I would plunge broccoli through my eyelids before that.
I guess I mean how you feel about the Kardashians. Next one. How about sweats or suits?
Oh, I know I'm kind of suited up, but I wear nothing but sweats around the house.
Love it. Talk to your past or your future self?
Oh, that's not even close. I talk to my parents every day. I'm not sure I would ever want to talk to me at any given moment, at any given point in history.
I think it's the first time anyone's ever said that answer. That's hilarious. All right, last couple here. Do you cut your sandwiches down the middle or diagonal?
Man, I don't like my sandwiches cut, man. I just
shove the whole thing?
Yeah, that's the way we get after it, champ.
I love it.
Okay.
Would you rather live in a world with no crime or no privacy?
Say that one more time.
Would you rather live in a world with no crime or no privacy?
Oh, no crime.
There you go.
You're talking to a homicide prosecutor, so.
That makes sense.
But wait, if there was no crime, wouldn't that mean you'd be out of a job?
I'd be done. I'd be on a beach somewhere, champ. I already thought this through.
Okay.
Last two. Your favorite candy of all time is?
I'm gonna go with a Milky Way.
I can respect the Milky Way. Not Kit Kat territory, but
No. Stop. You're offending me. Milky Way.
Last one. If you went head to head against me in a legal case, who would win?
What? Oh, yeah, you would. I'm just being nice.
Oh, really? So I can clip that, and then I can put that like in my
This
resume.
is David's favorite brand of question, where he tries to get like a sneak compliment by
I
putting
know.
it
I
in
mean,
a
it's
absurd
like,
situation.
It's really sad. I mean, it's like borderline pathetic, but I fell for it.
Oh, well, DeMaurice, thanks for playing along with us, and thanks so much for joining us today. I know you're a super busy guy, so it was really fun to kind of pick the business side of football with you.
Anytime, guys, man. I really enjoyed this one. Anytime you want me back on, I'll do it.
Awesome.
Appreciate you,
Anything
man.
you want to plug to our audience? Anything that you would just like to say to everybody before we get out of here?
Good Terps.
There we go.
Love it.
Terps.
Terps.
Awesome.
All right, fellas, be safe.
You too, DeMaurice. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Get that background out of there.